Hey everybody, Cptn.Canuck here, and today we are talking about custom games. Particularly how custom games define the meta. Now, this is something I tweeted out a couple weeks ago that I wanted to do a video on, and I was a little lazy about it. I let it slip for a couple weeks, and then I was like, you know what? No. This week it is happening. And I think this is a fun topic that just really doesn't get talked about enough. In my opinion, custom games provide a bit of a sandbox for people to kind of test Dota mechanics in against each other, often because they provide like accelerated economies or reduced penalties for losing. Really, there's no stakes in a custom game. And especially in custom games where they use some facsimile or subset of the Dota items and have some PvP elements, you can really just do Dota stuff, but in a much more, fun, casual, and less punishing environment. Think games like Overthrow or Atomic War or Custom Hero Chaos or even like Ability Draft, which is not really a custom game, but in general, I think that ranked MMR creates a bit too much ladder anxiety amongst players. Players want to execute in ranked, right? They want to play the dominant strategy. They want to not get ridiculed. Their teammates don't want them experimenting or trying new things in ranked. And so people need a place to kind of figure that sort of stuff out. And there is unranked games, but unranked games are always a little wonky, and they just never, half the people are taking them seriously, half the people aren't. But I think in these custom games, it gives people a bit of a place to just be cheesy and outlandish, and everyone's doing it together. And as they do that, they start to innovate. And I really think that these custom games tend to end up being ahead of the meta in a lot of regards. People start finding things that seem cheesy, and then they slowly work them into viable strategies that can actually be brought back to real Dota. For example, Razor for the longest time was always built as this slightly tanky agi carry. You'd maybe get like a Drums, a Sanjin Yasha, BKB, maybe a Shiva's Guard or something, Butterfly. I've got a couple examples here from like TI9. This was kind of the dominant way that Razor was built back then. But after Auto Chess dropped in 2019, there was a lot of these other auto battlers that started to hit the scene in the subsequent years, particularly Atomic War in 2021, which was a really awesome custom game. I spent a lot of hours playing this one, and in it, people really discovered the power of Refresher with certain abilities. Kunkka's Torrent Storm was up there. People were doing double silencer ultis, which everyone kind of knew was good already. But Razor Ags with a Refresher Orb was a very dominant strategy in that mode because, well, you've got 5 heroes that are running at each other automatically. You can't control them. There's no micro to be had. You can't just disengage from a fight. So yeah, you throw on the big AoE ulti that you can double up. So that turned into a really dominant strategy, and slowly people started integrating that into real Dota. They realized that, okay, BKB, they reduced the duration on it a couple times, and so people were starting to go, well, okay, BKB is starting to get a little less valuable, but you started getting into this meta of Razors just buying Refresher, like almost first item, like sometimes maybe second item. They get like a BKB and then a Refresher, and then they'd be able to ulti, BKB, and then refresh, and then ulti, they'd BKB, and they'd finish it up with an Ags later on to end the game and hit buildings. Similarly, just recently, before TI, a lot of people were playing Overthrow, and they were starting to realize that due to kind of the chaotic nature of the fights and the AoE in Overthrow, that a Blade Mail was really, really valuable because the AoE damage dealers in that mode couldn't control who they hit, and because you had 10 opponents, you could dish out more proportional damage per enemy with a Blade Mail than a single target item would let you do. So this reached a bit of a pinnacle with Shadow Demon players buying Blade Mail and multiple hearts and Strength Blink, casting Disseminate on themselves and then just blinking into damage and dealing massive damage to everything around them. It was stupid, but it was hilarious. And then TI-12 rolls around, and suddenly we have every strength core in the game rushing Blade Mail Heart, because players started realizing that if you position and you initiate right, you can force damage onto yourself regardless of the other team's conscious effort to avoid it, right? People would try to be like, no, I'm not going to hit the Blade Mail target. But if you're aggressive enough, if you're jumping in people's face, if you're an Earth Spirit or something, you just roll in. They can't not hit you. You're just going to kill them otherwise, right? You're just going to be able to do whatever you want. So you kind of attract that damage to yourself, and that meta evolved out of that. Now, obviously, these strategies don't roll over one-to-one. We weren't seeing Heart Blade Mails on the Shadow Demon, but the over-exaggerated strategies that pop up in the alternate game modes often just lead to softer adaptations in real Dota, like Heart Blade Mail on Earth Spirit mid with a Shadow Demon 5, right? That was a very popular strategy at this last TI, particularly in the group stages. So I'm starting to see this pop up a little bit already with the new patch coming up, right? There's a lot of custom game shenanigans that are starting to happen that are really fun and really interesting that I think people consider cheesy now, but are going to make their way into real Dota very soon. Particularly with Conda, the new item. It just makes single target spells proc damage based on your auto attack damage, meaning that heroes like Sniper or Bounty Hunter or Morphling can have some ridiculous spell-based shotgun damage. You know, you can just pop people with it. I've even seen some like funny stuff where like Rubik can steal Enchant Totem from Earthshaker and then use a Conda, and if he uses it because it amps up his attack damage, he can just Fade Bolt somebody for like 1.2k damage. It's ridiculous. There's a lot of stupid fun stuff like that. Some of the other fun stuff I've seen popping up recently that hasn't quite made its way to competitive, lots of Wind Ranger Gust plays, like particularly with things like Puck Coil and Mars Arena. In Overthrow particularly, there's like talents and stuff that can buff up the rate at which Gust blows you, but like it's still very good, and I think you could see a lot of shenanigans with that. Necrophos with his Ags, I think, is an underrated one that really hasn't seen much attention. With insane HP regen, like certain spells will grant regen as a form of healing. Like Juggernaut's Healing Ward is actually health regen, it's not healing. Chen's Divine Favor does as well, Omni's Repel, and all of those can be used on Necro to make his Ags go from like a mild inconvenience to like an unstoppable Giga Radiance. Like it's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, I'd say in general, custom games are like kind of underrated as a part of the evolving grander Dota meta. Like I really think that the real Dota nerds, the OG Dota nerds, are out there splitting their time between experimenting and innovating in sample environments like Turbo, Overthrow, and other stuff like that. And then they're applying it to real games and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. For example, like during TI this year, I was getting some insane Overthrow games in the evenings after TI games. I ended up playing with Blitz and Boxy right in the middle of group stages. I saw a bunch of other pro players in these games as well. But, you know, it just goes to show that these guys are getting off of their competitive games. They're going back to their hotel room. They're like, oh, man, I want to relax. I don't want to just play stressful pubs. They play some goofy games, and it gives them a chance to kind of stay fresh and stay in the meta and stay connected to the game without, like, destroying their brain on toxic, terrible North American pubs, right? So yeah, anyways, like I think you got to give custom games some love. They're an underrated part of our community, and even the ones that don't really adhere to the Dota items and heroes and stuff, they're still a blast and a good way to unwind when laddering gets to you. I kind of want to hear what you guys think about this topic. Like, what other custom game strats have made their way into Dota that I might not have like talked about? What do you think is kind of the next one to come out of these ridiculous custom games and make its way into competitive? Do you think I've kind of overstated the importance of this? Like maybe custom games are just a microcosm of Dota and not the other way around, but I really think that custom games kind of inspire it. And also, like, what are your favorite custom games to rock out on after a shitty day of pubs? I mean, I've got my own. There's a couple goofy ones. I've been playing Recreeps a bunch lately. That one's a blast. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. There's a lot of fun stuff out there, and I really think it's kind of interesting talking about how it intertwines with real competitive Dota. Anyways, that's all the time I got for today. You guys are all beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, whatever you guys celebrate, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever it is. You guys have yourself an awesome break. I'll be back in a week or two, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.